Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp with a Limp, and I am here with something that I know plenty of you have been excited about and looking forward to, because I know I've been excited and looking forward to it. This is Kontact Now Red Eclipse. I've got a prototype copy, so keep that in mind. Everything that you're seeing, all the counters here, are all prototypes. The player aids, everything, prototypes. Did not come with dice. These are actually the very excellent bullet dice from Lock and Load, the gravity dice that I'm using instead. Maps and everything, for the most part, everything is real close to done. They're just touching up the last few things before they get sent in and get ready to hit the printers with it. But there might be some changes between what you're going to see here and what will eventually be released. So just keep that in mind. I am going to show you guys some gameplay, just how everything works. But I want to use this first video to really kind of touch on some points that I had mentioned about this game before that kind of sets it apart from other games of its ilk, the tactical squad-based combat, and really just excites me about the system. There are a few little things. The command point chits here. I've got the NATO ones here on the left, Russia there on the right. The way that infantry leaders are handled, I've got a few little basic squads just lined up here on the top. We'll zoom in and we'll talk about those here in a little bit. I'll briefly touch on the tactical event cards, which don't have to be used. You can use them or you don't have to use them. It's really up to you. They do add a neat flavor to the game. And I know some of you guys like me are wondering, can you play this game solitaire? Yes, you absolutely can play it solitaire. There's no question about it. There's questions when it comes to how the tactical cards are going to work as far as solitaire is concerned. I'm doing some poking around at it now to kind of try to figure out where that's going to land and help them out with that one. I'll let you guys know as I figure out more. You guys will hear about it. Let me start with one of the key things of this game, what I really just thrive on, and that's these chit pull, the chit pull mechanic of the game, okay? So each side's going to have 3 or 9 command chits of 3 different types. So you've got 3 1s, 3 2s, 3 3s, and that's on each side. And if it were just that alone, that wouldn't make that big of a difference. I know you're going, hey, Gimpy, what's the big deal? They've got the same thing. It's the type that you're going to get and the number that you're going to get that matters. So let me grab a player aid here and show you guys real quick. I do have access to some of the files, so some things I will show in the corner there for you guys. And what I'm talking about in, again, prototype, so not guaranteed to look like this here in the end. You're going to look here where it says orders creation, and then this is for the Russian units on what type of commands they're going to get. You're going to tally up the number of command points that you have, and you're going to look on the number on the left and then look to your right to figure out how many of what type of chit that you're going to get, okay? So let's take our Russian guys here, for example. For them, we have, let me grab them up here real quick. We got 3 guys. If I can get them all set up here. And again, I'm holding them up because I do, like I said, have access to some of the files, but I'm not sure if every single counter is there. So I'm going to hold them up just in case they're not. We have 3 leaders, but then if you look in the top left corner, you see their leadership value. And you guys have seen leadership values in games like this before. I know the big comparison is going to be to Lock and Load Tactical, and I'm going to touch on the similarities and differences as we go along with this. And this command point thing is part of that. So their command strength is, if I can get this guy to stay, is how much their leadership can help them plus their range on the battlefield. So when they're doing things out in actual combat, that is the range that they can take and issue orders. So I'll show you guys that here in a little bit on how that's going to work. But as far as your chit creation, you're going to take and count up the number of leaders that you have. So we've got 3 leaders, and then you're going to add to that their leadership strength. So we have 1 plus 2 plus 1 is 4 plus 3 leaders gives us a total command value of 7. All right, so you're going to take that number 7 and you're going to look on your little command chart here. So we go down to 7 and we see that for 7 command value, the Russians will receive 1 1 and 3 2s. So we grab out our 1 1 and our 3 2s, and the rest of these are taken off and will not be used in the little scenario. These are going to be thrown in your opaque cup and randomized with the Americans. Okay, so let's see. Well, not the Americans, NATO. Let's see what NATO's getting. So we'll pull this up here and take a little look. NATO, again, I figured them up with the same, so the NATO units have 7 as well. When we look at them, it's different. Check this out. They get 2 1s, 1 2, and 1 3. So 2 1s, 1 2, 1 3. The rest of these go to the wayside, and you guys can see there's the difference. And that's one of the big things about this game, is this whole command system here, that depending on the amount of command points that you're starting with is going to affect what command chits that you're going to have, okay? And as you take casualties throughout it, so if your command value changes because one of your leaders is taken off, well, you're not just losing himself, you're losing his leadership value. So the loss of this guy would take your command value for the NATO from 7 to a 5. Well, at that point, you would have to recalculate. So now, instead of having 2 1 chits, 1 2 and 1 3, you would have 1 2 and 2 2s. So you would only be, where are we at here? Giving 3 orders per turn, or 3 chits per turn rather, versus the 4 that you had. And that's how the game is going to work with all of them. So picking off your opponent's leaders is a outstanding tactic if you can do it, because you can take and reduce the amount of pulls that they're going to have during the game. They won't be able to take and activate their troops as much because their leadership has suffered. So you can see with all the little guys that we have here, you'll take and mix them up, and let's just draw one out at random for an example. All right, 1 1. All right, so we pull this out, and that means NATO will start. Now, some scenarios will have one side starting with initiative or other. This is, again, just a basic example. You pull the NATO chit, they have 1 order to give, and they can give one of these orders. So what you can do is you can have one of your leaders give an order to either the group stacked with him or another group of units within his command range, or you could give an order to an individual unit. All right, so let me zoom in a little bit here for an example. Okay, so we've got our guys here. Let's say we've got one leader here with a 1. He's stacked up with a squad. Don't worry about their experience level for now. We'll touch on that here in a sec. So he's got 1 guy with him, and then we'll take and set 1 guy a little farther away. If this were the situation right here, and you drew this 1 chit, you could either take and activate this 1 squad off to the side, or you could activate the leader with the squad. But if both squads were stacked with the leader, you could activate the entire stack. Or if they were stacked like this, so within the command range, he could take and give an order that way. Basically, what this does is it prevents you from being able to just have a stack of random units. Let's say it's just 3 random squads out there, and they can't just be spread all over the field and taking orders. You've got to keep a command structure as you're going through the game. You've got to keep your guys either close to or within leadership. A mistake I actually made when I was playing with them is I was doing kind of like I would do in Lock and Load Tactical and setting up Kill Team, and I would just move, my stack. And I was like, no, you can't do that. You can't move the stack because they don't have a leader issuing them an order. So to move a whole stack of 3 guys like this would take 3 separate orders. I would have to pull a 3 chit to move all of these guys unless a leader is taking and giving them that order to go. So that's the way the command system is going to work. And I got to say, it is really just ingenious the way it works. It sounds a little complex when I'm just kind of mulling it over here, showing you guys a little bit of an example. But when you really get into it, because I haven't even really read over the rulebook that much on this. Most of my experience with the game has just been sitting down and playing it. That's it. It's all about playing the game. If you've got experience with games like this, it's not going to take you long to learn it. I think my biggest problem for this is going to be keeping the rules straight between Lock and Load Tactical and Kontact now, because there are differences, and I'm sure I'll confuse them. Like your advanced order down here, right here at the top, advance is very similar to low crawl in the fact that you're moving up 1 hex and you're not subject to opportunity fire, but you also can't fire yourself. And then you have tactical movement down here, which is very similar to assault move in the fact that you can move up to half your movement allowance and still fire your weapons with some associated penalty, but then you're still subjected to potential op fire from your opponents, which op fire I found in this game felt to me a little more worrisome, for a lack of a better term. You had to be on the lookout. You had to make sure you were moving through cover or advancing slowly, moving in the right direction to make sure that you weren't exposing yourself to enemy fire. The guy who developed the system, Steve Overton, and he's had a lot of help from another gentleman named Tony. They were trying to go for as realistic as you could get down into a game map like this. If you took a tactical situation and you put it on a map, how would people react in XYZ situation, and then tried to incorporate that into the rules. And for the most part, it is rather intuitive. Does it make sense? Would it happen in real life? Yeah, okay, well, that's more than likely what the rules are going to correlate with. So you're going to take and figure out whatever your command structure is for the beginning of each scenario for each one, and you'll take and put your little chits in your cup, and then you start setting up your units. Let's see, what else? The leaders. Okay, let me touch on one other thing here on the turn track, and we'll focus a little more on the map. You'll notice that the turn track here goes up to 10. It might be a little different, again, prototype, but you'll notice that it changes here at 7. That's because every scenario doesn't start at 1, okay? You could have a scenario that starts at turn 4, so you have 3 guaranteed turns, 4, 5, 6, and then when you hit 7 and on, when they have this red on it, that's when you have the potential for the game to end, the scenario to end. You'll take and roll a couple of dice on it, then you'll consult the dice, and depending on what you roll, the scenario might end or it might continue going. So I like that you can't take and play a scenario and then hey, this is going to be the last turn, so I can go balls to the wall and try to do whatever I'm going to do, and not worry about losing any troops because this is the last turn of the game. You don't know. It could be the last turn of the game, or you could have another turn coming around. So that's another interesting aspect of it. Now, one of the key things about the game structure itself, when we look at the counters, they're similar to other counters that you've seen. All right, if you look there in the top right, that's the unit's morale. So V8 for this is a veteran unit. So V is veteran, R is regular, G is green. They'll have different stats depending. So 8 for the morale. The 7 underneath it is their firepower. 4 underneath that is the range. 5 underneath that is the movement factor. Okay, so those are the stats that you're going to be looking at when you're consulting it. And again, the pictures, so you've got a couple of guys on here, that is applicable as far as stacking limitations are concerned. And the way this game works is a little different. It's not about the number of counters, it's about the number of pictures of individuals. So this is a 2, and then obviously single man counters would be a 1, and you can have up to 10 individual pictures. So if you had 5 of these counters, that would be 10. Anything over that in a single hex will start to incur not necessarily penalties against you, but bonuses for your enemy firing onto you because you're so densely packed and you're not dispersed like you should be. I think if I remember right, these hexes represent something like 50 meters. So you could fit a lot of people in 50 meters worth of ground. So you can take and put a fair amount of counters in there. But once you hit a certain point of oversaturation, it is much more likely for the enemy to be able to hit you when they're firing at you. All right, but getting back to the counters themselves, one of the key things about this game is the number 7 on this counter, that's firepower. The color of that number matters, all right? That number can either be white, black, or red. And depending on what color it is, depends on how much is added to the attack. White being the weakest, black being pretty standard, and red being the most powerful with the ability to cause fire. So if it's a white, again, I don't have a white die with me, so pretend green is white, and red and black here. If it's a white weapon, you're still going to roll all 3 dice for every attack for the potential for triples, which can cause certain game effects. We're not going to get into all that now. That gets a little more specific. But for every attack, you always roll 3 dice. All right, you always roll the 3 dice. Just depending on what color your attack is. If it's a white, you'll only add the single white die to your attack with any other modifiers, and then the defensive roll will be made. If it's black weapon, you'll take and add the white and the black, again with defensive modifiers, whatever is involved. And then if it's a red weapon, you'll take and add all 3 together when you're consulting your attack, which is good for units that are like snipers. Snipers take and add that extra 3rd dice in there because they can put out a lot of damage. Kind of like how in Lock and Load Tactical, the sniper rolls 2d6 instead of 1d6 when they're making an attack. Very similar in this. Now, certain weapons, like I said, do have the ability to cause a fire, and they'll have their red numbers. And when you have fire, that can take and potentially spread. We won't get into all of it because I'm so excited about the damn game. I'm trying to cover as much of it as I can, but there's just so many neat little aspects. Let's just say fire's cool. It can go everywhere. You can have fire go all over the damn map, and it's sweeter than shit because it can really start blocking things off. I actually had a incident when I was playing with them that I had dropped some, I think it was multiple rocket launchers, close air support or something like that, but it actually set the fire in set fire to some woods and some buildings that I was getting ready to push through, but it was holding both of us back. So it was kind of, we were separated by this forest fire, both of us waiting for it to go out to get ready to go after each other. Real neat effect. All right, let me give, since we're talking about the attacks, let me just give an example real quick of how an attack would work. We'll zoom in here and we'll take and add some stuff together. So where did I throw that camera? Okay, here it is. Let's take and say this group here is conducting an attack and they're rolling against this guy. Make sure it's in film. Yep. Just a little bit. All right. All these guys here are in this. Let's go to this tree since it's got line of sight. They're in this tree and they're firing on this guy here. All right, this little Russian squad. You can take and either have the leader add his leadership modifier, or leaders in this one have their own range and attack. You can see for his range and attack, it's the same as his firepower is the same as his leadership. So for him, it wouldn't matter. But for one of these guys, focus, Mr. Lynch there, his leadership value is a 1, so he could add that to units outside of his range. But if a unit is within inside his 2 hex range, he could add a 2 instead, so that would be more advantageous for him. So you're going to add up your total firepower. Okay, so we're going to look at it. We've got Rogers here. We're getting 2 from either his firepower or leadership, doesn't matter. 7 for the squad, the veteran squad, and then we're getting 8 from this Saw squad automatic weapon here, and you can see that it has firepower of 8, range of 11, and then that 0, some support weapons like this can actually have a negative effect as far as movement points are concerned. There are some heavier mortars and rocket launchers, some other stuff I'll show later, that actually have things like -1, -2 in that place, and it reduces the movement points of the unit carrying it. So definitely something to keep a track of. Oh, speaking of movement points, while we're here, there is something similar to double time in this, in the fact that if you're moving with a leader, those squads can have an extra movement point. So this squad moving with a leader would have a movement of 6 instead of 5. All right, so we're going to add all that together. We got 2 plus the 7 plus the 8. So 9 plus that's 17. We got 17 total attack right now. And we're attacking this guy here in the woods. Now, this is... I actually had to print this off because I didn't have one included in the little prototype game because it's been changing a little bit, so don't take this very specifically right now. It's still being tweaked and finalized. But basically, this is your terrain effects chart. And this can take and provide a cover bonus for the units there. And that cover bonus is going to get subtracted from the firepower here and added to the defense roll here. Okay? So, what did I say we had? 17, right? So 17, the trees provide a bonus of 2. So 17 minus 2 gives us 15. All right, so 15 is the attack. And then these guys have a morale of 7. But they're going to get to add 2 to it, so they'll be getting 9 when they're making their defensive roll. You guys will see that here in a sec. I should have thought the numbers out. Let's see, 15 and his round 9. Let's just take and roll what we get. So we've got our 3 dice. We'll roll all of them just to see if we get triples. We didn't, but we did pretty well. All right, so we got 2 6s and a 1. Well, you're looking at that red 6 going, oh, yeah. That one doesn't get added because these are all black numbers that we're using. So we're only looking at these 2 dice. So you're going to add that 7 to our total here. That gives us a total attack of 22. Okay? Bear with me. I know, again, it sounds a little complicated, but once you actually start playing it, it's real easy. We've got 22 against his 9. He'll take and roll. And he gets to add a 9 to it. Not the red, but he's adding the white and the black to it. 9 plus 9 gives him 18. We beat him, but we didn't double him, so he is flipped. All right. Now he goes down to his reduced side, which will have reduced stats, shaken, all the other good stuff that can potentially happen to them. Now, if you beat them by double, okay? My math's bad, so let's just say 9 is what he had, and you beat him by more than double, whatever it is. At that point, they're eliminated outright. So if you beat them, they take basically 1 hit, flipped or whatever's going on, double what they're needed, then they're eliminated outright. So it's kind of a 2-hit system. Now, there is one other thing that can happen when you're taking and firing at someone. If the rolls are even, so my total attack was 22, his total defense was, 18. So let's say my total attack was 18 and we had tied. In that case, the unit would actually become disrupted. Hold this up so you guys can see it. And you can see disrupted adds a -2 to all of the stats. The unit's not flipped, and they can take and make a rally attempt later, with leadership and all that other good stuff involved with it. But they are kind of suffering right now. They're shaken up. They've taken some heavy fire. So you've got that to where either if you match it, the attack and the defense, disruption. If you beat their defense, then they're flipped. If you beat their defense by more than double, bam, they're just wiped out completely. I know it sounds a little complicated when I'm just kind of sitting here going over the attacks and everything. It's really not. It's really simple once you actually just start going through the system. Okay, let's see. What else do we need to touch on? The 3 dice system in this is one of the other big things. So you've got your command structure, how the command chits and the draws are used. And it's the 3 dice that are being rolled every single turn. Every single attack, you will never roll less than 3 dice in this game. No matter what you're doing, you're rolling 3 dice. You might only be looking at 1 or 2 of the dice, but you're still looking to see if you roll triples for whatever little special effects could potentially happen. You know, spontaneous rally or something like that could potentially happen. Neat little system to the game. And I like how this allows for different weapons to have different strengths. So if you've got let's just say a old-timey semi-auto rifle that doesn't fire very fast, it's not a modern-day assault rifle, well, that's going to be white, and you're not going to, well, this one's white. It's going to be white, and you're not going to take and have as much firepower going down range. If you're firing something else, where's that counter? Hold on. I'm going to grab something to show you guys because it's real neat. Alright, so look at this. You can see this one actually has some red in it because it's the M203 grenade launcher. So you even have weapons like this in the game where you can potentially start a fire, you're firing a grenade, boom, 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 all neat stuff that's going on with it. Alright, let's take and show you another aspect of this. I'm going to take and back out just a little bit. Okay. This game does not have mess loads of moved and fired and assault moved and stealth and all those admin markers that you're used to seeing on other type games. All right, you only really have a few of these, and you're only going to, it's fired on one side, moved on the other, and you're only going to need 3 of them, really, if you think about it, because each turn, thanks to that command draw system, the most amount of commands that you can draw at once is a 3. And these are simply used to help you remember, hey, I've moved this group. This guy's fired, and, you know, I moved this group over here, and we're done. You know, that's your 3 orders. Once you're done with that, these come right off, and the next time your chit's drawn, you can take and activate this group again. So let's back out and show you guys the command thing. Let's say we drew this one, we activated these guys, and they conducted their attack. Well, we draw another counter, and look at that. We drew another NATO counter. This group can fire again. And then we draw another one. Hey, we drew a 3 this time. Well, we could do something else with those guys and then 2 something else's with other groups. You can only ever issue 1 order per unit per impulse, but there's nothing stopping you from taking and activating the same unit impulse after impulse after impulse if that's what you want to take and use your orders on. Of course, it's going to take and make more sense to take and spread your orders out, you know, to all your troops so you don't end up getting flanked or blown away or something along those lines. But I really like that because it kind of makes the system seem a little more fluid. Because if I'm kind of focused over here on this area of the map and they're pushing around and I've got someone way over here, well, I can continue to issue orders over to these guys that are, you know, tucked on this side of the map. I don't have to try to drag someone all the way across. I can still keep giving them orders until they're dead, you know, or disrupted and blown off the map. Let me take and show you guys some cards real quick, and we'll probably call this because I've been yapping for a little bit. And I'll take and play through a very quick scenario on the next video, just to throw some units on the board and let you guys see a few attacks and moves and advances going back and forth. I'll thumb through the cards here real quick. Again, these add a lot of neat aspects to the game, rallies and attacks and close air support and things of that nature, but they are not needed to play this game and have an excellent time with it. But they add a lot of awesome shit to the game, so you want to take and play with them. It really floats, just whatever you want to do. I would suggest probably not using them when you're first learning the game. Play through scenario 2, get the system under your belt, and then take and throw the cards into it. All right, so let's see. We've got Determine the Defense. Raise the defender's morale level by 3. So if a guy's taking an attack, he can take and play this card and increase his morale, make his troops more likely to survive and not take damage. Oh, and very quickly, you're going to get 4 of these each turn, all right? And you can take and play them whenever you want, okay? There is some impulse and who can go first type scenarios, but the basic gist is you can play any of your 4 cards whenever you want to. If there is some conflicting issues, there are rules in the rulebook to address that. Grenade attack, add 4 to infantry firepower attack in the same or an adjacent hex. So these guys were firing 2 hexes away, so they couldn't do that. But if they were adjacent to them, like you creep through the woods, you advance on them, you creep slowly, pop them with some grenades, you can do a lot of damage. See, double time, all units within the command radius of a leader that is activated to move have their movement points double for this turn. Let me find one. Ooh, this is a good one. Determined attack. Immediately make an attack on the same location. Use whatever units or weapons are in line of sight and range. So, say I, attack this guy with that group of units, I could play that card, and without needing another command chit draw, take and have some other unit on the board, attack them as well. Finish them off. Let's see what else we got. There's some good ones I want to show you. Oh, this is neat. Experience level up. That makes it to where if your unit's green, they go up to regular. If they're regular, they go up to veteran. And the neat part, where is this? Experience level up. Close air support. That's where you're going to be taking and dropping things like your fire for effect marker in certain places, trying to take and hit all around. There are potentials for drift. And then you also have rolls to determine the skill level of the pilot who's dropping the close air support and what weapons he's firing. It gets real neat when it comes to that stuff. I want to show you guys one of the ones that actually affect the enemy. Artillery missions, similar to close air support. Ooh, here we go. Morale waivers. Morale in a chosen location drops by -2. There are cards that you can have access to that will take and affect your enemy as well. You can drop their experience level. You can reduce their morale. You can affect them directly through card play. Actually, here we go. This is one of the ones I was looking for. Stop any infantry movement order. The order counts as being given, but no movement takes place. I actually used this when I was playing against them. He had a couple of guys he was advancing up, and he was advancing them up so he would have line of sight on my troops that I was trying to rush across to kind of flank around on him. I played that card, and it made it to where he had to burn his order, but his troops didn't get moved up, so their line of sight was still blocked while I was making my end run around him. The card play in this really does kind of bring it to a whole other level. Let's see, add 3 to any infantry firepower. Support weapon breaks if combat resolution die roll is double. So, let me grab one of them. You can see the back of them has broken. Your weapons can break through potential game effects. Rapid fire, add 3 to infantry firepower or -2 for any to hit attempts, patrolling, confusion. Ooh, here we go. Stop one attack. Because of command confusion, the target area is not clearly defined. So that's kind of neat, You can get heroes. Let's see if there's any other I want to show you. Infiltrate. Now this is a neat one. When using an advanced order, you may move 2 locations instead of the normal 1. The defender may not fire at them using opportunity fire. An advanced order is, like I said, similar to a low crawl order in the fact that you're moving just to an adjacent hex without triggering any opportunity fire from your enemy. You're just taking and moving from these trees into the building or wherever you're moving to, but you can only move 1 hex. Well, if you play that card, you can move 2 hexes as if they were 1, doing an advance order. Real neat how that works. I think that there's so much that I want to cover as far as this game's concerned. That's the basics of it. I've kind of given you the highlights right there across the waves. Real big things for this game are the chit draws, which are going to make this excellent for solitaire play, especially for the fact that not only is it randomizing who goes when, but how many orders you're giving during that impulse. So you're not going to know which side's going to activate and how many units they are going to activate until you draw that chit. And if you're able to take and gun down their leaders and cut them out, you're having to face less enemy chits on the board, and you can end up having to where a lot more of your chits do get drawn. Now, there are rules about the fact that only, I believe it's 3 of one side's chits can be drawn at once before an enemy needs to be drawn. So in larger games where like you'll have 9 on each side if you've got, full 18 down there, in a larger game like that, you wouldn't have the potential for all of one side to go and then all of the other. There is a rule that only so many will go before you would have to just keep drawing until you got one of the enemy chits. And again, I really like the fact that you don't have to worry about marking the units, because that cuts down on the clutter that you're going to see on the board. You're only going to have the units themselves, any disruption markers, fire markers, stuff like that. You don't have to worry about your admin markers except just for that impulse, because once that very specific impulse is over and you're drawing another command chit, you pull these off and new orders are being given, and you can take and keep issuing orders to the same or different units. Really excellent system. And then again, the 3 dice system, I love that. I think it works very well to help distinguish between lower level weapons, higher level weapons, potential weapons that can cause fire. So you're having to look at whether the red die is higher than the other dice, if it's going to cause a fire, and then at the end of the turn, you'll be making rolls. I can't remember the specifics. I think a roll of a 1 means it goes 1 or 2, it goes out. 3 or 4, it stays the same. 4 or 5, or 5 or 6, it spreads. Something along those lines, but it's rather basic. You'll do that at the end of the turn. All right, so that's the basics of Kontact. Now, I know I've hit a whole lot of stuff in a very short period of time. I just wanted to kind of briefly hit the highlights here for you guys. What I'm going to do is set up just a quick scenario. I probably won't add many more units than the ones that I just have on the board now, and just take some turns issuing orders back and forth and letting you guys see how the system's going to work as far as advancing on your enemy. I might take and play some cards as well for each side, just to let you guys see how that's going to work as well. All right, but that's going to be it for me on this one. You guys take care. I will catch you in the next one.